If you're into DIY and crafts, the type of crepe paper you use will actually make a huge difference. Some tears too easily and some doesn't stretch the right way. This can actually ruin your entire project. So today I'm going to walk you through this dollar store crepe paper to see how it works. I'm going to look at the texture, the stretch, the durability, cutting, and the general usability of it. So let's jump in. First, I want to quickly go over how this looks. So I bought two different colors, but there may be more. So there's like more of a brighter color and a darker color. And so I'm going to quickly open this up and tell you about this paper. Now I haven't used this before, so we'll get to see how this works out together. And I'm just going to pull out this pink one here. So it's got some tape on the side to hold it shut, which might turn out to be my downfall. So overall, this is very light, and you'll notice when I unroll this, it does not have any lines in it, marking lines on it. Some more expensive types of crepe paper will have that, cut not straight, but it is almost 10 inches long, and it says it's 23 inches long overall. And I'm not going to stretch this out just yet because I want to keep it nice the way that it is. And it has a nice texture feel to it, and you can see that there is some gradient in the design of the paper, so it is folded in upon itself. And so far the paper feels nice, and it feels almost like flaked chocolate. Have you tried this dollar store crepe paper? Let me know in the comments what you thought about it. I tested the stretch on this crepe paper, and I know that when we're making our flowers or our crepe paper designs, we don't necessarily need to stretch the paper the full length that it will stretch, but we can. And so that's what I sort of did with this paper. I cut myself a 1-inch strip and I stretched it as far as it would go. And when I was done stretching it, it pulled out to be 2 inches long. So that was 100% stretch, which I was pretty happy with. And the paper still kept its shape, and I was able to manipulate the paper. So that was pretty neat to see. So I'm really impressed with this stretchability of it. For the durability, what I did was I just stretched the paper and kind of manipulated it left and right, and to see if it would actually rip or tear when I was working with it. For the most part, the paper was very durable and didn't rip. There was a few times when I was cutting too aggressively or when I was pulling at a weird angle that the paper did rip, but when I was just using the paper normally with my hands and not trying to tear it completely, I had no issues with the paper ripping at all. So that was really fantastic to know. I tried cutting the crepe paper a few different ways just to see what I could do with it. And so you can either cut with the grain or against the grain. And so I've tested cutting with and against the grain 3 different ways. I used my scissors, I used my paper cutter, and I used a Cricut Maker. Now, when I was using the scissors, I found that cutting against the grain was much easier, and I was able to actually cut very easily. However, when I was cutting in the direction with the grain, I found that my scissors didn't want to go where I wanted them to go, and my cuts didn't turn out very nicely, which was a little bit disappointing. When I used my paper cutter, I found that cutting with the grain was very simple. I was able to cut sections of crepe paper along the grain to the size that I needed. However, when I was trying to cut against the grain, I found that my paper cutter would get jammed and just chew up the paper, so that wasn't very helpful. Finally, I tried cutting the crepe paper with a Cricut Maker, and I set up a oval to cut with the grain and against the grain with a rotary blade on the Cricut Maker. And overall, I'm impressed with how it turned out. I used both my strong grip and a fabric mat to cut it, and the crepe paper cut out very nicely. There was a few spots that were stuck, but nothing that I couldn't pull apart without ruining the design. I've seen possibilities of using your green cutting mats for this, but all of my green mats aren't sticky enough to hold down the crepe paper without having it move around. What's your go-to craft with crepe paper? So far, mine's flowers. Drop me a note in the comments and let me know what you like to make with crepe paper. Alright, so let's talk about the overall usability of this crepe paper. I used it for making flowers. because that's really what I was hoping to use it for. But there are other crafts that you can do with crepe paper if you prefer. When I was folding and refolding sections that didn't work, it turned out really nicely. So I was able to fold it, have it stay in place, and then refold it if I needed to without actually ruining the paper, which was nice. It was also really easy to manipulate the paper. So after I folded it, I could roll it and move it around, and there was no issues with it, and it had a nice shape, and it still maintained its texture. When I was pulling my leaves apart, or my petals I should say, I was able to get nice curves on them and folds and bends to make my flowers look the way that I wanted them to. I also found that the paper wraps nicely around flower stems if that's what I was wanting to do with them, but just being able to move it around really worked nicely with this paper. The one thing that I need to do is I need to practice more making flowers with crepe paper, but as with all crafts, I find that the more that I practice them, the better I get. So this isn't a fault of the crepe paper, but more so of the user. But at the price point from the dollar store, this is a great buy. All right, and now to answer the $1 million question, or should I say $3.50 question. Was this crepe paper worth it, and would I buy it again? Absolutely. I absolutely love this paper. It is fantastic for beginner crafters when you're learning to use crepe paper. This is my first time using crepe paper, and I love it. And as a dollar store find, this is fantastic. Absolutely love it. So while I'm going to buy some more crepe paper before they sell out, I've left you some videos here that you can watch to learn how to make some additional crepe paper flowers and learn what supplies you need while making them. Thanks so much for watching, and happy crafting.